Okay, I think we're rolling. Okay, this is kind of take 2 of this sort of video because I haven't really got a script, so we're going to see how long this sort of takes me. Because it's Pride Month, I thought I'd discuss sort of the different views from my perspective on the issue of sort of straight literary agents writing LGBT themed books. This is just my opinion. I think there's good and bad to both arguments in this case, and I would love to hear sort of your opinions on this problem, or positive, if you view it as a positive or negative. You can tell I'm really stuttering today. I always view it as a double-sided coin or a double-edged sword. And I think if we take the discussion back to when you're sort of starting off with a book and you're sort of looking for an agent to publish it, a lot of the time now agents will turn around and they will say, we are looking for diverse voices, this is what we're looking for. But that isn't always the case. When they say they are looking for diverse books, they usually mean something along the lines of diverse characters which might not be the main character, or when they say their own voices, they're looking for more realistic scenarios rather than fantasy or then sort of adventure stories. It's a very complicated thing because different houses are looking for different things, where they're only looking for diverse voices if it's safe. If it's safe for people to take on as a project. If you're a new author who's openly LGBT and has a LGBT book as your first debut novel, they are going to be less likely to take you on unless that is the genuine market they're looking to represent. And that isn't always going to be an easy find, especially if you're from the UK, from personal experience, where we are a smaller sort of country in sizing, where there are less literary agents out there. And I think from there you can kind of see this correlation where if you're a sort of author that's been around for a long time, if you've written a few books which are sort of safe, where they're sort of got straight main characters with only one or two sort of in the background, like LGBT characters in the background, diverse characters in the background, you're more likely to be accepted when you decide as a author, oh, I'd like to write some really good books with, you know, diverse characters for my audience because I think this would really make them happy. And that is a good thing. These authors are looking out for their audience, and that is a generally good thing, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. One of my favourite books is actually on the shelf here, sort of the Carry On series. Rainbow Rowell is a perfect example of that. You know, she's written sort of books which are considered more the norm, and then she turned around and made a spin-off off of that with sort of gay main characters, and frankly, I rather enjoy them. However, the problem lies within that, where if you're an LGBT author, you are more unlikely to be accepted with your first book. Now, let's say you get someone and then you move along to publishing houses. They are even less likely going to try and take LGBT authors on, from what I know, than a straight author who's got maybe a few other books under their belts. It all comes down to experience, and it's no one's fault, to be honest. It's where the industry's kind of shaped and become. It's more normally now, it's actually the smaller houses that want to take the risks. Like, I know that if you've seen my other video on the review of The Last Son, K.D. Edwards, I think this was one of his first books, as far as I'm aware. If not, then I apologise. But as far as I'm aware, this is one of his first books, and it's the imprint of Prometheus Books. And I don't think they're a big publishing house like Penguin. God, I know there's others, like Hyperion, I think, is one. Well, there are loads of examples, it's just not all of them are on my shelf. Most of them are Penguin books. But I'm kind of going off topics now. I can't remember what I was just saying. The industry is hard and it doesn't make itself easy for people. And I'd love to see more ease being let in. I think, especially when there's such a call for it. We've got, lots, especially in our political climate as well. I think some literary houses really do want to break the barriers, and there are people in the company which do generally want that, but they don't realize just how hard it is to get to that point where it is a very sort of up and down market with books. Some books are generally going to be successful, some will not. And it's not the author's fault, it's usually the time period they're released, how the marketing's done for it, a multitude of reasons. And it doesn't always, add up to the best for people. My point is, in my opinion, there is the great side of it that because of this issue and because there's been such a call out for it, there are lots of really great authors who are straight that have created really great books. As I said, Rainbow Rowell, Becky Abatelli, Love, Simon. That was the first movie I actually felt validated for when I was 16, back in 2016. Sort of Leah on the Offbeat, it gave me a new perspective on sort of how people feel as a bisexual, how they don't feel validated even though they should. And the first fantasy novel with LGBT characters as the main was generally Carry On for me. I think Nico D'Angelo from Percy Jackson was the first ever character I ever got to relate to and interact with, and the only reason I think I ever completed the original series was because I heard that there is a character that would appeal to me. And I think that's so important to take from this is without these people listening to our calls, we wouldn't have anything. So it's good enough, saying on Twitter, oh, there are, we would like more books written by the people that they're supposed to be representing. I do get that. But I also get the other side of it that people like us would never be published unless these people kind of helped pave the way. These people kind of show that there is a want for it. There is a drive for it. Because we know what book critics are like. Sometimes they'll say a book is really amazing, and then you read it yourself and you're kind of like, maybe it's more for an academic audience, while other academics or people who read the books are going to be like, I don't really think it's a New York Times bestseller. And then, within months, it's, made billions and got movie deals or TV series, Netflix adaptations. It's very much, you have to, as long as the author's listening to the audience, it usually works out of a step forward. But I would personally, through it all, I think it boils down to, when are we gonna see more? This issue has been sort of going on for the past 10 years apparently, probably more, especially in the UK. I remember finding articles written about this issue, about diversity and gay people in books, or lesbians, bisexuals, transgender, anyone in the spectrum was being cast as an issue in UK publishing since 2011, 2013. Sort of a long time ago. And I'm sort of wondering, why are we still talking about it? Why hasn't this been sort of addressed? Why isn't it easier? And I think I could sort of correlate it in a way to the sort of stuff happening in America right now. If you think about it, please support their businesses. And I completely agree with that, to be honest. It brings to light that really, to support these people, we need to support their businesses, their crafts, their wares, buy books by Black authors. I think it's a great idea, and I think it will help pave the way for sort of future consideration of when publishing will consider us more as equals. And I think there is a bad side to it, like everything. I do think sometimes I get the opinion, and I think this is just me generally, but sometimes when I read these books and then I see the fandom for them, I start to realise these books aren't written for LGBT people. Sometimes these books are being written not for people like me, they're being written for a female audience. And I'm not sure how to feel about it. One part of me is like, well, at least it's something. But another part of me feels like, why is it being made for a female audience? You know? It kind of, I could relate this back to manga and, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, I generally think when female authors, for example, I've got a very negative opinion on sort of Cassandra Clare and J.K. Rowling. I never used to, but in the past 2 years, the things I've heard and found out that they've done as I've grown really shocks me. And I kind of get the opinion that they only write stuff about gay characters. One is to appeal to a female audience, like Cassandra Clare. I feel like she gets a sort of, not pleasure from it, but a sort of feeling of enjoyment from writing writing sort of characters, especially if you look at the dark side of her early fan fiction life. It can be very worrying for me personally. And J.K. Rowling, I feel like she was embarrassed. The whole point, I think, I want to stop hating her. I want to appreciate her because I do love the work that goes into her stuff. I love how the universe is expanding in it. I love the aesthetics. I love going to Harry Potter World. When I went to Florida, that was my favourite land. I cosplayed in it. I felt so free. But you can't help but get away from the fact that she was only putting in things for the sake of being diverse. And I've got the feeling that maybe she was generally trying to be diverse, but at the time when she wanted to do it, like 10, 20 years ago, during the 90s, it wasn't considered a thing that you can do. And I think at the time, when you learn her story about how many times she tried to get published, it kind of becomes clear that, you know, maybe she was trying to play it safe because she didn't know how people would feel. But then you can also say, so that's why I say she's probably feeling embarrassed by the idea that, you know, she's probably thinking in her head, I didn't include these things back then, but I feel like it could really fit now with today's market. But the way she goes about it is completely all wrong. And we know what she's like about the transgender community. She's very, you know, so we don't, and she's very, you know, she's fat phobic as well, and I kind of can't get on board with that. That kind of bothers me. But I think with any author now, you're kind of going to get like people that will find flaws in them, and that is perfectly fine. The more we know about an author, the more we can make judgments on whether we want to read their books. But that's kind of going off topic. I think I've been going off topic quite a lot in this video, actually. It's probably just going to be called Rambling of Reese at this point. But I think that's all I can really say on the matter. Like, I felt like I wanted to discuss this as like a fun thing for me personally, to get my sort of feelings out there and to see how other people feel about this, because I know other people have either a really extreme opinion on it, you know, from one way or the other, and some of you are going to be more sort of in the middle or have slightly different variations of what I'm thinking in terms of the situation with the publishing market. Like, I don't blame authors because it's generally not their fault. In fact, they're trying to help us at this point. They're trying to say, look, I'm writing this book So then so the publishing industry knows that you exist and you want stuff. While I think so I really think the problem is in publishing agents and publishing houses when it comes to dealing with this stuff. Especially, I remember Rick Riordan, he's always been a very huge advocate in recent years for LGBT representation and diversity. And I think the books he writes are very kind to those people. And I do remember an incident where he got really angry over like the Russian cover of one of the lost. I think it might have been the Lost Hero book where they made one of the I can't remember now, but I remember one of the characters being whitewashed, and there might have been an accident. So, but I remember him getting very upset about that, and I think it did get sorted out eventually. But I guess different countries have different issues. It might generally be easier to get published in America because, from what I know, almost all these books that I enjoy, which are LGBT, are mostly American. And it might generally be because there are more publishing houses and more publishing agents in those countries. Every state is about the size of an actual country in Europe. So, to put it in perspective, you've got like 20, like you've got like 50 states. So that's like 50 times more sort of publishing agents that you're going to have than in the UK as a writer. But to be honest, you can't let that sort of stop you. Hopefully, I think in the next few years, things will get better. And I do hope they do. The future does look very bright. And I just hope we get to see more of these books becoming like very good television series too. We get to hear more about these great books, which will give us the representation we kind of deserve. So I think I'll kind of leave that there. Thanks for tuning in. And I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day. So yeah, I think I'll leave that there.